Good evening, everyone. It is Monday evening, and welcome to another episode to An Imperfect Union. Tonight, we are going to have as our first guest Mr. William Herbert. Mr. Herbert is a Navy veteran, Vietnam veteran, and he lives in Portland, Oregon. And we're going to talk a little bit with Mr. Herbert. Good evening. Can you hear me? Uh, For some reason, we cannot hear Mr. Herbert. Do you have your headphones? Try it. Try your phone. You can connect with me on your phone. Sometimes modern technology does not always work the way that we want it to, but we shall see. Anyway, the reason why I wanted to the reason why I wanted to have Mr. Herbert on the show. Okay, let's see if we can get him on this one. Can I hear you? Can I can hear you now?
Okay, good.
All right. So, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing fine. Beautiful day in Portland. Makes all
Oh
the
yeah.
difference.
Yes, sir. That is a difference. Um, why don't you tell the people a little about yourself? I saw that you did two tours of Vietnam out there on the water.
I was on the water. I guess it was 2 tours. Yeah. Okay. I hadn't thought of it like that. I'm 74 years old. I'm a retired school teacher. I was a naval officer aboard the USS Dubuque from 69 to 72. I was very fortunate because I was on the ship where I was safe. Um,
Well, hey, let me tell you, we appreciated you guys out there. When we had to call in fire and whatnot. I mean, it was it was kind of nice to hear those Navy guns, man. I mean, everybody did their part, and you know, uh, the most important thing is we all came back.
that was important. Indeed.
um, so, now one thing I will admit, being a grunt, I did miss that Navy food that you guys were supposedly had out there.
Well,
But
being in the wardroom, I had really good food.
oh my goodness, yeah, that's right. Yeah, yes, yes. And you said that you're a retired school teacher.
I am.
So I mean, was that what your chosen profession after you came back?
So after I came back, um, I didn't want anything to do with my bachelor's degree in management. To be an officer, I had to have gone to college. So I went to San Jose State University, graduated from there in 68. In December of 68, the draft board came looking for me. And my dad had been in World War II. He told me, never go in the Army, never go in the Marine Corps. So
I was told that same thing about the Marine Corps, but yeah, yes, yeah. So I ended up jumping out of airplanes
applied
instead.
to the Navy, Coast Guard, and Air Force. Navy took me first, and that's where I landed.
So and you kind of still ended up around the Navy up there in Portland, right? The Navy has a presence in Portland, correct?
Very minor, very minor. Seattle and Bremerton, they do.
Okay, yeah, a little further north, right?
Yeah, about
Okay.
3 hours north.
Um, well, now I know you said that you weren't that much involved with it, but for a while Portland was in the news. It seemed like
Every
uh,
night.
everything was burning. I mean, what was your experience during that time? Did you have any contact with it other than what we saw on the news? I mean, was it widespread? Was it confined to a certain area?
It was very narrowly confined to almost precise locations in Portland, repeatedly around the Justice Center, and a few other instances where demonstrations got out of hand. They seemed to be going on peacefully, and then at a certain point, I will say anarchists stepped in and started creating the lawlessness, the damage, breaking windows, and so forth. It went on for many, many, many days. I have former students I was in touch with who were involved with it. I was paying attention to their Facebook posts regularly. Yeah.
So, I mean, like you said, it was confined to a very particular area. Now, uh, were there any uh, arrangements made? I mean, what were the final results as you see them as a citizen of Portland?
I think it continued on with the pandemic, but they just seemed to fall away with the winter. And recently there have been a few more, and some rioting has been going on, but certainly not in the areas of Portland that I ever am. Not where I live, not my part of town. More the downtown areas.
So, so you mentioned that you were a teacher.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute, because there were some things that happened in between there. Because I saw that there was a very happy event that took place in your life in 1979, and it seems to be ongoing.
Yeah, it's still ongoing. So in 1979, my wife and I got married. Yeah. And it's been what, 40? Oh gosh, and what? 42,
You better
41, 42 years.
you better not come up with the wrong number in front of
Right.
her now. You know
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that in itself in today is somewhat of an achievement, and I have to congratulate you and
Thank you.
her on that uh, stunning a continuing relationship. Now getting on to high school here and your experience as an educator. What do you think is realistic? I think the way I put it to you was teachers, students, and vaccines. How confident are you in the school system restarting? Do you think that this is going to be like part of an ongoing system? By that I mean the remote learning. What do you think the changes in the vaccine are going to bring in the future?
Long term, I think changes with vaccines will be quite beneficial. I was really fortunate with the VA to get my vaccine very early on. They did an amazing job. I was more than impressed with what they did. But knowing the schools that I know, and the schools I know are in the Reynolds School District in the far east side of Portland and in the suburbs of East Portland, I cannot see how kids and teachers can be in those rooms and be safe because there's no airflow, there's very little ventilation. The high school has classrooms with no windows at all. It takes money to upgrade. Who's going to clean? I think it's really iffy right now for safety, especially for older adults. Now with vaccines, okay, we're supposed to be okay, or safe that is, but I don't really know.
What do you think about the idea of the vaccines for kids between what is the age of 16 and 18, which would be more of the age group that you?
Yes. And the Pfizer vaccine that I happen to have been fortunate enough to have is reportedly safe for those kids. And I would encourage everybody to get the vaccines who can get them.
Now, like you were talking about the air, so we're also talking about physical distancing.
Right.
We're talking about masks. In your particular school district, have all those things been accepted, or do you have pockets of anti-vaxxers and
Well,
anti-maskers? Or
I think you may realize Portland's rather progressive.
really,
And,
I know.
and putting mildly, and which is one reason I like it as much as I do. So anti-maskers aren't a big presence, but the union where I worked and from which I retired is still, oh, I can't say battling, but in negotiations with the administration to take care of the needs that have to be done with class sizes, resuming classes, number of kids in rooms, how they're going to clean classrooms, provide ventilation that's necessary. And it's like years ago, we went out and strike, and the similar disagreements between administration and the union are going on.
One of the things, you just mentioned that Portland was a very progressive city. What do you think about the minimum $15 an hour wage?
Generally speaking, I like the idea, but there are places where maybe $15 is not enough.
Like San Diego.
Yeah, you know that. You live in a very expensive city. Portland is not cheap either, nor is New York City. But then you look in the Midwest, other places where prices are much lower, home prices, living prices. Maybe 15 is more than some people need. I really don't have that answer.
But as far as Portland, do you think that the average wage in Portland should be $15?
That should probably be more for Portland. Unless, if you're going to have a multi-tiered, two-tiered, multi-tiered employment so that young people right out of high school with no experience have jobs that pay $13, $14 an hour, I could see that. But then how would a program like that be designed so that the people who are mature, who have families, need to be able to live on their income are compensated? Everybody who works full time should be able to have a home, should be able to have health care and food.
Oddly, you bring up another problem that you have in Portland, just like we have here in San Diego and most major cities: the homeless.
Oh, it's a terrible, yeah.
And I'm going to, kind of right now, hone in on the homeless veterans.
Yeah. I want to say I don't understand the problem, but I do. It's because we as a nation aren't willing to pay to take care of our veterans, as so many more than I need to be cared for.
I find that, and maybe it's different for you than it is for me, being an infantryman. But it seems to me that, uh, especially when it comes to Vietnam veterans, um, we have just been accepted. Whereas everyone, Afghanistan, Iraq, any other theater that you can mention, they come home as heroes. I've had some anger management classes with some, and the thing that I find hard to grasp is why so many young people are not willing to accept help. Is it that they aren't willing to accept help, or is it we no longer have the programs to help them when they come home from these high stress situations?
You're referring to young veterans.
Yes, because because when I look out here in San Diego, I'm not looking at so many guys our age. I'm looking at guys that are under the age of 50.
Okay.
Like I said, maybe it's kind of a little different from city to city, but I mean, we uh, we don't seem to be taking care of, like you said, of the people that need the immediate care. Under the last administration, I think some people were saying that PTSD was a hoax.
Right. Yeah.
So
Well,
I
a lot
mean,
of other things were said in that administration too.
so what do you think is our solution as far as veterans care? I mean, we do have a new VA director. They're uh, I think they're kind of out of the idea of privatizing VA care. But what what do you think? Do you think that VA care is going to, they're already talking about taking Social Security. Do you think that, we might be next?
Who's still talking about taking Social Security?
the
The former occupant?
well, uh, Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham are still there, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not so much the former, you know.
Okay. Now, lately I haven't heard
Jim
about that.
Jordan is Jim Jordan is still there. I mean,
They always want to blame the people who are at the bottom who desperately need the money, whereas they're willing to give all the money to the people who already have it and allow them to have their stock dividends and so forth.
um, do you think that the veterans that took part in the January 6th uh, insurrection or whatever you want to call it, and I've been kind
Yeah.
of harsh on this because I mean there is, you know, I find it rather treasonous after you've
Oh,
taken the
oh,
oath.
I did too.
So you know, well then,
I think
what's
we
your
need,
opinion?
Jim, I think we need to take a look at what the UCMJ, how that would apply to such people, if it applies. If it does not, then we look at what laws may have been broken, charge them, have trials, convictions, and so forth. As far as taking away benefits they might be getting, it's got to be done according to what laws we have now.
Well, I mean, the gentleman is an officer in the National Guard. I mean, he's
Yeah,
still he's still doing whatever 6 months of training, and he's still getting a paycheck that says United States of America.
and that's where the UCMJ comes in because there are military laws that would apply, I would think, to people who are active duty or maybe can be recalled to active duty and then punished. I don't know. We shouldn't forget about what they did, though. They need to be dealt with for the treason that you mentioned.
When you see major corporations like Coca-Cola, and we kind of depended on them in Vietnam because Pepsi wasn't there yet. uh, but Coca-Cola, and you see Major League Baseball taking the All-Star game from Georgia. What do you think about these voting restrictions that seem to be coming in from 43 states as of now?
You mean the new Jim Crow laws?
Well, see, I don't think that they're new. To me, they were always Jim Crow laws. Now
Okay, but
they
trying to bring them back and put them. Yes, okay. What do I think of them? It's totally wrong. We need more and more people to vote. We need as many people to vote as legally can. And we had that in the last election. It went pretty well. And the voting in Oregon is all by mail. In Washington, it's all by mail. I think maybe California has that too.
yes.
It works so well. Of course, Republicans don't want more people to vote because they know that they won't be elected then.
Remarkable how all of a sudden a system that's been in place since the Civil War is now under attack. You know, because I mean, they had. I don't think a lot of Civil War soldiers came home to vote. I think that that was the first vote by mail, if I'm correct. But it is very glad to talk to you. I'm glad that you were able to participate in the show, and we look forward to having you back. Why don't you tell people where they can find you on social media, and give us any final thoughts you have for this evening?
Well, you're asking questions that are prompting me to think more deeply on some subjects, mainly in where you found me is on Facebook, William Herbert. I occasionally post political topics.
That's how I saw you.
Yes, I know. Well, thank you, Jim. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Yes, sir. Always good talking to a fellow veteran, and I appreciate your service. Welcome home.
Thank you. I appreciate yours too. Good night.
Yeah, you have a good night. That was Mr. William Herbert from Portland, Oregon, and I was, as I said, I brought him in so that we could actually get a chance to find out what's happening up there in Portland and whatnot. But here's one of our favorite personalities from the state of Minnesota, right there from Minneapolis, St. Paul, always on the front line. Mr. Don Allen, how are you doing this evening? Turn up your volume a little bit.
There we go.
All right, there we are.
There we go. There we go.
Now you turned it back down again.
You know what? I'm taking
Okay.
these off and I'm putting them over here and I'm leaving them alone until I figure out what's going, because that's the opposite of what's supposed to happen with headphones.
I know. Hey, some technology. We'll just blame that on technology.
Sounds like a plan.
But first of all, I didn't get a chance to talk to you Saturday.
Yeah.
So, for the sake of our audience, could you kind of go over your Saturday program with us? You had a very distinguished guest on your show?
Okay, you know what? Our show has a reputation of kind of going after politicians and, really holding them accountable to the point where a lot of them get scared to come on. And this particular politician is the current Minneapolis Ward 4 city council person, the first trans person elected to Minneapolis City Council. And his name is Philip Cunningham. And I thought it would be better, and after talking to his campaign manager, if we have a respectful one-on-one, because I know that we all had questions for him, but the delivery is important. Plus, I've been doing this 11 years, and never, even if I disagreed with the politician, never did I come after he or she live on air, especially if it was a black person. So I kind of eliminated those variables and derivatives, and we just had a conversation because, I wanted to know, what does defund the police mean? And it's really funny the way the newspaper put it out. The newspaper put it out as if the city council wanted to defund the police. It was some activist tag in the local newspaper. What he was saying is that the Minneapolis Police Department, even pre George Floyd, is working in a bunch of silos. There's like tons of different bosses in tons of different areas. And he said he wanted to make sure that they collapsed that and put that under one roof. So the left hand knew what the right hand was doing. So that's what it was about. It was a great interview. I had a good time. He answered all my questions. I didn't have to go looking for him afterwards. So it was good.
Okay. All right. And of course, now let's kind of get down to, you know, I'm another one that kind of holds things responsible. I see you have on your army there.
Yeah, I had to
you
let
know,
you see that. I had to
uh,
let you know.
all right, okay. I'll let you represent it. So
Yeah.
but yeah, I think there's a lot of things in play in Minneapolis that we don't really hear about. And by that, I mean, we hear about the trial, and we hear about the different aspects from a national level. But you're right there in the grassroots level, and I'd like to know. We always talk about the younger leadership, but there doesn't seem to be a presence in the national news. When I look on, and God knows, I'm really bad about this because I see Mr. Scott is in, and I'm going to let him in too. Because let me get him in before. Okay,
I know that dude.
you know that guy?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay,
Yeah, I know. I know that guy. Yeah.
okay. What I'm looking at, gentlemen, um, is what I see as the Cornbread Fried Chicken Foundation.
Okay.
And by that I mean, the only difference between the message that Reverend Sharpton is preaching now and the one he was preaching back in the days when we were young is that 180 pounds that he lost.
Okay.
And I still see the same old song from the same old people, but I don't see where the young people are. I don't see where the future leaders are put out in the forefront. Yeah, I mean,
Well, Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. I mean, I guess this is the new
But which Black Lives Matter? Like I said, I mean, I have 3 different Black Lives Matter organizations here in San Diego. Which I mean, I got a national, I got a local, and then I got, I guess, an independent chapter.
Yeah.
So which Black Lives Matter? Now that the money's here, which Black Lives Matter? That's why I say we're singing the same old song.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that 100%. It's hard to figure out who's who, and they've already created a caste system among 3 different groups of black people. You have a national, local, and then some other one, state one, and so that's crazy. That's just who does what, and where's the money? You know.
Yeah.
Well, but see,
Yeah.
are we looking for leadership? I mean, we say, okay, Black Lives Matter. We've had our urban leagues. We've had our NAACPs. We've had where is some focus? Especially here in Minneapolis, like Don. We've been really watching the Chauvin trial here, which is really, I mean, it has turned this city upside down. I mean, it really has. I mean, from the tearing up, I was downtown yesterday and took some videos at the government center. They had guards, sentries with rifles walking back and forth. That's how bad it's gotten. Yesterday was helicopters all over South Minneapolis. Helicopters all over South Minneapolis.
It's almost like they're getting ready for something, and they've gotten ready to the point where it sticks out like a wart on your middle finger, and it's not gonna get better before. It's like the hole in your muffler. You drive around, you just hope that sound's gonna stop. It's not gonna get any louder, and before you know it, you're making more noise than any car on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And so here in Minneapolis, it's a different kind of animal. It's an animal like that really doesn't pay attention to the different systems running at the different levels. Because if you talk to Minneapolis City Councilman, if you talk to the mayor, if you talk to the governor, the head of education, their knowledge is very aloof, of what's happening in their own communities. And to understand politicians, I think they're everywhere with the celebrity status, but even more so here in Minneapolis, because if you look at the black neighborhoods, Mr. Scott's familiar with the Phillips neighborhood in South Minneapolis, and everybody's familiar with North Minneapolis, 2 of the most poorest areas in the state of Minnesota. And so if they're filled with black people, which they are now, black, Hispanic, and Asian, Hmong, and Karen, and this is a poor neighborhood, the nonprofits in those neighborhoods seem to be the only ones that can, go out on Friday night, spend the money, and the neighborhood's not really getting a whole lot out of it. And so this whole Chauvin trial and what's going on, I see all these kids down there protesting, these youngsters that could be at the state legislature tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock testifying on behalf of education bills. They're nowhere near that level. They're at that protest, that social justice level that does not take them past, this is my opinion, where they need to be at. And so an all call goes out for anybody that wants to talk about issues at the state capitol on Zoom with the Senate Education Finance Committee. You had till 8 o'clock tonight. It's 8:35 to sign up. I mean, they might let you sign up a little bit later, depending on space, but I heard nobody talking about that. I heard nobody talking about why our kids at schools in the district that I work in, why was their math proficiency, black kids, why was their math proficiency at 5% in 2010 and 2011? And in 2018, 2019, before COVID, it's still at 5% proficiency. We fall into the deficit syndrome. And so, I mean, I don't mean to keep talking, but this is broad and it's wide and it's many systems operating against us at once. And we, as singular people, we can't be singular. We have to be united. There's going to be people on the top and on the bottom, as in all systems, but we need to flip the tables in the temple for real.
Don, as an educator, I want to ask you. You were saying that from 2019 until 2021, it was at 5%.
No, I'm saying 2011, 2010, 2011. That's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21. For 11 years, which would be about 6 or 7 school years if you go through like the first year and then the second year.
Could I ask you? I mean, and I know you probably don't have this off the top of your head, but could I just ask you? Would you be willing to look up what that percentage was from 1982 to 1981?
Yeah, well, the problem with that database only goes back like 8 to 10 years. And the stuff that you want to, I'd have to put a data request in, which might take 30 days for me to get information.
No, I'm just trying to see if we've really made any progress.
No, we haven't. We have not since 1982. Since 1982, and Mr. Scott will testify to this. Since 1982, in the Twin Cities, I know for a fact that we've got the highest achievement gap between whites and blacks, and our numbers. Okay, I don't care if you go from 19% to 22%. 70% is passing. Okay, and they're celebrating these little. Well, last year we were at 22%. This year we're at 27%. That's a gain of 5 points. We're amazing. No, you're still failing, asshat. Excuse my French.
We're MA. You know, at least PG-13. So as long as you don't get up and start stripping, we're all right.
All right, I won't do that because ain't no show off in here. Hey, is there a link where I could share this conversation on my Facebook page that you could send me?
Yes. Actually, the same link that I sent you, you can send to your.
Okay.
And also, we're on YouTube to an Imperfect Union.
Okay, that's where I'll go.
Yeah, and you know, they can join the chat room or whatever they want to do right from YouTube. So, Mr. Scott,
I wanted to ask James. I wanted to ask you a question real quick.
Sure.
And as I sit here enthralled with this Chauvin thing, and the chief of police, an unprecedented thing happened today. Chief of police testified in this trial. I wonder, did you get a chance to see that?
Yes, I did. I've been very closely watching this trial for a number of reasons. For one, I've been on both sides of that table, more or less. And I've had some police issues as far as possible brutality and things like that. But there were two things that really stood out to me. And the first was something that I really was very pessimistic of to begin with, and that the fact that there's even a trial. If you look, Don, I'm pretty close to your age, and I mean, I think it's been 40 or 50 years since the last policeman has went on trial. And the last policeman that went on that was found guilty in your town was a black man, which which me and Don already had talked about. So I was kind of skeptical of that. I mean, and then the second thing that really kind of stood out was the fact that this man has a very stalwart reputation. I mean, he's not just one of those guys that came in and applied for the job. He is, from what I understand, he is a native. He is
Oh,
all.
you're talking about the chief now.
Yeah, I'm talking about the chief and his testimony. Did you want me to talk about the medic, or did you want me to
No,
talk
no,
about
no.
the
That's the one I wanted to,
jail?
ask you about your thoughts on the delivery and the knowledge and how the chief held up under the questioning.
Oh, I thought he did excellent. I mean, he more than did his job. As a matter of fact, I thought after the cross examination, his testimony was even more important. But the one that stood out for me the most this morning was the doctor at the uh, emergency room when he was saying that he was already dead when he got there, because when the story first came out, it seemed like he had been revived while he was in the ambulance, and when he got to the hospital, then he was pronounced dead. But the from the EMT to, I mean, it's all been consistent. He had no pulse. He had no pulse. He had, well, I think it doesn't take a rocket science to make, to know what no pulse means.
That's
There's one thing that I do see in the trial quickly is that it's almost like they're just trying to make a very simple point, in that the police are in this matter, is the good guy, but Floyd was the bad guy somehow. It's like they're almost trying to, because they've got to influence the jury. The jury is the one that's got to really come up with who they believe.
Now, see, I think that's kind of the fallacy of the trial, because they don't have to convince the jury; they have to convince one juror, just one, just one.
Could you
You know,
imagine? Could you imagine that? Here goes the deal. If one juror is not 100% sure based on the law, without any emotion, just based on the law and the case presented, that juror, without intimidation, without persuasion, without anything, can say, doesn't even have to say now not guilty. All he has to say, he doesn't agree with the evidence that, or she doesn't agree with the evidence that's been presented. Chauvin walks out of the courthouse under heavy security. That night, the city burns.
but wait a minute. But here's the thing now: if Chauvin is found innocent, you still have three more guys that are on the
And,
charges.
and you know the story
So
behind
you-
the the two of the guys. Okay, we were all military, right? And so two of the guys, it was their third or fourth day on the job. Chauvin was the boss. He was like the lead guy. Now you tell me, your first sergeant is beating the shit out of someone that you know, and you know that he'll hem you up. You'll get an Article 15 if you try to interfere or jump. You're gonna stand there and let him do what he's gonna do, because you will, if you're in the army, you're gonna end up, in CCF or somewhere you don't want to be. That's prison, jail for 2 weeks, or hard, heavy labor. And those guys were paying their dues. And I'm not trying to protect them but the fact of the matter is that if it's your third day on the job and this guy does this, the whole system is screwed up, number one. But should you be blamed? I would say I want to be police officer again, and I saw this happen. I witnessed it, but it was nothing that I could do, because this is my third day on the job after my training, and this guy, this idiot boss, kills this guy named George Floyd. So is that cop Lane or the brother? There's a black man. One of the cops is a black man. I haven't heard the NAACP, the Urban League, no black organizations even take this brother in and listen to his story. So we're out here. We're out here hard because if Chauvin gets off, everybody gets off, and they're not going to try the other three. I guarantee you that.
Well, okay, just to address what you had just said. Now, let's take this on the other side. Like I said, I've been on both sides of that table. So, let's say I go and rob a bank, and we get away, but the driver runs over a pedestrian in the street. Don't make no difference if that's his first time driving. We're all charged with murder, Don.
Yeah. I mean, I get that perspective, but I could punch holes in it, but I'm not, because if you look at you look at the reality of the situation is
go,
like,
go look at Minnesota State Prison, and
I mean,
then
no, look at the post and the testing and the training stuff that we saw on the screen today. It's very, very specific. The hierarchy inside of that secret club, which is called the police department, has some very detailed things that aren't on any piece of paper anywhere
oh
of
sure.
how you're supposed, has in any agency. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to find out how this all pans out and
Yeah,
see
but there's two things that they just will not look at. One is that officers have discretion. Okay, officers have discretion. I mean, this is a situation with a $20 bill, or they could have gave the man a ticket. I mean, they have discretion on what they do. They don't have to escalate these things. They don't have to take a mundane situation and blow it all out of proportion. And then when you get in the whole idea of court, the whole idea of the police is supposed to be one thing: justice. Okay. Now that's an elusive word. I understand that. But the whole thing is, it's not to go in and say, well, Chauvin's guilty, we're going to get him. Or Floyd, he's a drug user, so he got what he deserved. The idea is to massage this thing and come up with what is this elusive thing called justice. I mean, this is what if he walks and we've gone through the process and they say that's justice, this is where it breaks down for me. This is where it breaks down.
So then I think what I hear you saying is that, again, if that happens, there is no justice when the black body is concerned at all whatsoever. If Chauvin walks, that means that society has just pushed the evolution of Jim Crow to its farthest peak where it can get in 2021, because that's what it would be. I mean, then it would match all the other systems: housing, employment, education, wealth, and just to do well. And then now you have this legal piece. So what that does, it sets up another system that starts to turn its gears. This is the system that has benign malfeasance and neglect for black men. There's going to be more. George Floyd wasn't the last black man killed by a police officer in the United States after the 25th of May.
No, he was not.
Okay, so that should send a huge message right there. We're not being addressed. Our leaders. I mean, you talked about Al Sharpton earlier. I felt about Al Sharpton kind of how you, Mr. King, feel about Al Sharpton. I used to, and then I really listened to his speech at George Floyd's funeral, and I listened to it a couple times. It was on YouTube, and I kind of listened to it to deconstruct it. And he basically says, "I'm here because this is what I do." In his old age, he said, "I'm here because this is what I do. This is who they call." But you got to understand, Sharpton has connections with the infrastructure where black people, like, he didn't have that kind of connection with Obama. Obama wouldn't let him or Jackson really that close into the White House. Okay. It was all the stuff they did was really superficial. So you have right now this big dynamic with the Hispanic Latino people coming out front. There's articles saying that Obama didn't do anything for them. The black people, we're not going to say that because Obama was the first black, well, some do, but Obama was the first black president, but he wasn't a type of black man like Al Sharpton or Jesse Jackson. Those guys couldn't get elected as president of the United States, or even the Honorable Farrakhan, Louis Farrakhan, Reverend Farrakhan, respectfully. Uh, but Obama did. But did Obama do his due diligence? I think he did what he could. But you have back to Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton's in there with Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and he could push the agenda, but no one's really pushing the agenda because they want celebrityship. How close can I do a photo op with Joe Biden and the vice president? Can I? And we're not bringing anything to anyone. Like even our co-host Jonathan, I think I sent him a message and asked, did he ask Al Sharpton for anything? Because he took a picture with him. And that's not my lane. I would never do that. If I took a picture with him, it's because he gave me $25,000 to do my literacy program this coming summer. Okay, that's why I'm gonna take a picture with him, not because he's a celebrity. So there's really questionable processes, and I think black people in general have been trained by society and by their own lack of actions. I'm not talking bad about black people. I'm just talking about society in general. I know there's some good people that want change and they're change agents and they're out there, but let's stop this roller coaster. It's ridiculous that George Floyd could get murdered in the way that he got murdered. That would be miserable to have someone with their knee on your neck until you die. That's like having your head put underwater. But if you remember, that spectacle is no different than the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, where they hung black people in trees and had picnics, basically, and had viewings. It was like, oh, it's equivalent to us going to the theater on Friday night. They would go see a black man hung, shot, stabbed, drowned, castrated, or whatever.
Yeah, I've gotten kicked off Facebook numerous times for posting things like that. So yeah, I'm I'm that radical guy that yeah,
But
It's
we've
true.
seen what happened to Floyd. We've seen that. I mean, it's been shown all over the country. I mean, there's really no two ways about what this man did to George Floyd.
Are you really going to believe your lying eyes, or are you going to believe or are you going to believe the evidence that the defense puts up for you? I mean, here is the doctor tells you that this man died of asphyxiation, and you tell him that he died because he had a mixture of fentanyl and methamphetamines. Now, who's the doctor here? I mean, can we be real? I mean,
But
you know,
they look at us. They look at black men as these strong horse-like or ape-like people that are not, when they're not on drugs, they probably could have survived 9 minutes with a knee on the neck. That they're strong and just the biggest one in the plantation is the what do they call them? He puts
the
the
buck,
seed in all the women, the buck. Yeah.
the buck.
Okay.
Yeah,
So what they tried to do is take a historical assumption, bring it to 2021, and saying because George Floyd was doing all these things is the reason why he passed away, not because of the officer's knee. We all know that's BS, but we sit up there and let them present. The state let them present this fallacy that dates back to the time we landed on the southeast coast of the United States, Florida, Jamaica, Texas, the Carolinas. And they let that thing ride. And I was like, oh my God, Chauvin's gonna rock because no one's even talking that deep or even looking. Go ahead.
But then there's all these peripheral ideas. Now we're talking about this defund the police. Now somehow that has got into the conversation of this defunding the police. Nobody knows what the hell that means. And there
I
are
know
people
what
that
it
are
means.
saying,
I
especially
know what it
with
means.
what happens in Washington, D.C., we need more police. We don't have enough. So the narrative now is such a stew of, what's the first thing that we do? We got to get this trial over, but this defund defunding police? What would that mean? You want to take
Uh,
money away from them so they don't have enough people, or what? It's
uh, uh, let's look at two of the cities that had probably the biggest crime. What do you want to call it? Epidemic within the last 15 to 20 years. One town was so bad that at one time, when I was young, I even stayed away from there unless I really had to go through there. And that was Camden, New Jersey. Okay. I lived in Newark, and making a run from Newark down to Philly, you had to go through Camden. The second place is Baltimore. Now, both of those places have defunded the police. Their crime is down in both of those cities. Now, I'm not saying that it works everywhere,
sure.
but have you tried it? Has anybody proposed it? Or has the first thing that's come to mind is we need more police in the neighborhood? Well, if I don't trust the first two police that you send into the neighborhood, why am I going to trust the next three? So if that's not working, why don't we sit down and try something else? Even if we only try it in this little neighborhood here, maybe we try it in North Philly instead of South Philly. Why are we so prone to think negatively about new ideas?
And I think the idea, I mean, if you say you take the resources away, so what do you take away when you do that? And what are you putting these new resources in? And I think it's like you're saying, the Baltimore's and Newark. I mean, I've been to Newark. I've been in that area, and it's a stark contrast to what the Twin Cities area is. But what does that mean? You want to take money? Can social workers come in? Unarmed people can come into domestic situations or mental health situations?
Right. I mean, isn't that
I
what
don't
they're
know.
doing? That's what they're doing in Baltimore. I mean, for people that maybe marijuana, low drug traffic things, probably the area that George Floyd would have fit into.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been handled under those particular circumstances. But to me, I don't necessarily want to defund the police per se. I want to redistribute the resources. I remember when, I mean, and I'm not saying that, it's going to work now, but when I was a kid, it wasn't much, but you could go down to the neighborhood. When I lived in the projects, you could go down to the little neighborhood center, and during the wintertime, you had some place to play basketball. You had the little game where it was like you shot the little checker into the little side pockets and stuff like that. I mean, it was just more of a meeting place, and it was some place where the community kind of got together. So bring back some of those boys clubs that you took away from us. Some of those police that are sitting back there on their behind talking about the human services or things like that. Put them out in the neighborhoods. Let them go around to the playgrounds. Let them. But the first thing you have to do, you have to be able to trust the establishment. And a lot of times what you have to turn to people that aren't conventional. Just speaking on my involvement in the neighborhood, I can go to more young kids that are gang related or in violent situations and talk to them as what they call an OG. I can't go to them as Mr. King because that's not who that's not who they know me as, and that's not what that neighborhood respects. So Al Sharpton going in there telling them to put the guns down, and to them it's like you got on a suit and tie. You belong to the old generation. But maybe if you got some of those guys that that came out of uh, the penitentiary or at least have done time, somebody that they can relate to, and you sit these kids down and you show them one of the hardest things for me to do because when they passed the 3-strike law, I already had 4 strikes. So I had to make sure that I used that same bit of initiative and hustle to keep my behind out of jail. And I was able to tell the young kids, like, hey, like you can use that same energy and you can use it in a professional setting or entrepreneurship. But you have to be able to learn that this is not something that comes. It's not like being out there on the hustle where you have that instant gratification every day. You have to be able to teach them patience. And in order for you to teach them patience, you have to be patient with them.
Well, but James, when we came up, we knew who our neighbors were. We
Yeah.
knew who the people were that lived around us, and that was a source of correction. If I saw your mother, or if you saw mine, or if that was the same thing of just seeing somebody that's going to direct us. And that's one of the things that's missing. It's the same thing with the police. The police used to live like in South Minneapolis, North Minneapolis. Police lived right in the neighborhood. You saw them; they were there. They'd hang out the clubs with you. They'd be out at the club doing what and
Yeah.
so they were part of the whole neighborhood. It wasn't a us against them kind of thing. And that's, this is what it seems like we've fallen into now, some type of us against thing overtly, where we can't even have our own areas. We can't even have areas where we feel comfortable and go. And, defunding, I guess if I see a plan, if I see how they're going to utilize the schools, the social services, the child protection areas, all the resources that they have to help people with what they need: food, housing, jobs, access to education, access to
Well, well,
medicine.
well, well. Do you think that we should have metal detectors in schools and armed policemen in our schools?
Well, that's a tough question because I went back years ago to the high school I went to, and I was confronted by a policeman as soon as I went in. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know, and I think in today's world, you're going to need officers, but they can be community people. You can have community service type officers that know the area, that know the kids, that there's somebody that you wouldn't mess with as a kid that can be there to keep them straight. So yeah, it depends on what the community service. You have to have the right people in these jobs. You just have to have the right people, and this is what can make
What
anything
what
work.
what about if we replace that metal detector with one special needs teacher and a teacher that maybe can show that student how to operate his broadband or we bought an extra computer for the schools. I mean these are things that the kids are going to need. I
Yeah.
understand that they might not. I mean, you have to be alive to and grow up and all that, but maybe I think the biggest thing that is missing from today's youth is respect. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's not quite like Aretha used to say, where, just, I mean, it kind of goes back to me when you look at our history and you look at the Black culture. When the old chief sat down, he didn't get thrown out of the tribe. They kept him in a place of prominence, and they used his wisdom and his experience. The new leaders came to him to learn from him or to at least ask his opinion. We don't have that type of unity between our generations anymore. As I was saying to you, where
Yeah.
are the young leaders? Can you name me 3 young Black leaders under the age of 50?
Yeah, I mean, we see people that are in, on the national level in Congress, and um,
They're my age.
and we or my age,
Right.
I agree though. We have to get some younger people up, and we have to. But I don't see that they see things like politics and these things that are important. I mean, I can think back growing up, my parents, people from Alabama and Mississippi, didn't have any opportunities, but they knew how to run a household. They knew that you had to pay your bills. They tell me when I get my apartment, okay, you got to pay the light bill, you got to pay the water bill, you got to make sure you take it if you're going to be on your own.
You ain't coming
They,
back here no more. You ain't coming back. You ain't coming back here. Yeah.
but they knew how to survive, and they threw
We
that
we got
on us.
40 we got 40-year-olds living in their mother's basement.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm not just talking about Black people.
No, I know. I know. When I used to do the child protection, and I used to feel so bad for these grandparents. They take in all these kids. And so I talked to one of them. I said, "Well, why are you?" She said, "I ain't thinking about the grown ones. I'm gonna help these little ones because nobody can help them. I can help them. They don't have, they don't want to do nothing. Then, they're grown now.
Right. But their grandma can't take care of herself because she got to take care of 4 or 5 kids.
I'll take care of them."
Right. You know,
Struggle
she,
and the kids' behaviors and trying to run. It's a really, really, and I
and,
saw it up close in child protection. I mean, I saw it up close and personal.
and not only that, when you look at the age of kids nowadays, how do you get respect when the average grandmother or grandma or grandpa used to be a crackhead or used to be a
Yeah,
drug addict themselves?
yeah,
Because now grandma's what, 32, maybe
yeah,
35. So how do you get respect when your child saw you breaking his piggy bank to go get a rock?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a tough it's a tough beat. It really is, and when you come from generations of people that left the South and left different areas with a mission, with something to make better lives for themselves. Whereas people now they don't seem to have that same type of mentality, and that doesn't mean it shouldn't change, But we have to come into the new way. We need education. We need to know how to do things to compete. It wasn't like my grandfather comes up here from Birmingham, third, fourth grade education. Well, he retires from the University of Minnesota as the head maintenance man at the library there. You're not gonna get no jobs like that. You know what I mean? It's everything has
Right,
been moved up. The
right.
prices, they
See,
could save up their money from 2 jobs and get a house. Now, have you got $40,000 to put down? I mean, it's a new
I,
world.
I'll give you an example. Like when I moved out here in 2003, there was a big boom in California as far as real estate. And now a lot of those same people have their houses have lost 30 or 20%. But in the meantime, you know how do you tell your child, like they told us, if you work hard, you'll be able to get a good job, you're going to have a house, a car, 2.5 kids and a dog. Nowadays you have trouble just feeding you and the dog, let alone getting the rest of all that stuff. So, I mean, do we expect our kids to have smaller expectations, or I mean, how do you lead a child to greatness when he's surrounded by everything but greatness? And not only that, in order for him just to achieve commonality, he already has to climb up 3 steps on the ladder.
Well, Don's back now. So education. I mean, the education piece, Don. What's missing? What?
That's like that's like the $1 million question, because there's so many things missing. It's like maybe we need to be segregated and open an all black school, have black
Yeah.
teachers, black principals, just so we can instill what we got from our parents, the mother wit,
Yeah.
common sense, the discernment, all the things that
Yeah.
black folks need. And so, I mean, that's an idea right there. But there is
Yeah.
like tomorrow morning, I have a meeting with the second in charge of my school district. He's really cool. He's a brother. He's a superintendent. And he's asking me, why can't we propel? Why can't we go further? And I told him today, I'll just share this with you. I told him today I work in the construct as the only black male teacher in the school, but they did hire a female black teacher, social studies teacher this year, but as the only black teacher in the school for a long time, they tossed me into a leadership role during the pandemic where we're talking to everybody on like we're talking now. And if I say the sky is blue, they'll argue the point that the sky is red and green with black polka dots. And I says, why do I have to go into these meetings as a public servant, a professional with the credentials, and argue with white folks that have literally failed black and brown kids in this school for the last 15 years? It's very stressful. I figure I got 5 years in education in the classroom before I move on to something different in education, maybe less. But I don't want to spend another year qualifying myself with any white person in any school, in any district, anywhere in the United States, because that's what's happening. Every complaint, every whining, everything you hear about black educators in schools and cities where they're mostly white female teachers have the same complaints I do, because I thought it was something. I said, okay, wait, what's going on here? I said, that lady just told me that I shouldn't have been nominated or appointed as the co-chair because they had other white people in the English department that's been there longer. I said, is this a seniority thing or a leadership and a degree thing? And I put it to one of the principals. I said, hey, what is this? Am I a token now? I said, I'm not the victim, because if you look at me with those eyes of, oh, I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to be like this, I'm supposed to talk like this, I'm supposed to do all these things from your historical assumption, just think of what they're doing to the kids. But the data of what they're doing to the kids is already on the books. So
Maybe
we from the community. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no. I mean, from from what you're saying, maybe my problem is that I've never been a Negro.
You probably haven't. But then again, have you been a black teacher in a school that is mostly white females? It doesn't matter if you've never been this, that, or the other. it matters to them how they see you, how they socialize you, how they deconstruct you to their friends and their good old boy club. So you could just say,
But
I'm an Army
they
vet.
don't run the
I'm
school.
what?
They don't run the school.
But
They just work there, don't they?
but I kind of understand what Don is saying, because it goes back to a street experience, and I might be able to work well with the group, but before I even get that chance, the first thing they want to know is my credentials. And even though this guy might have a master's degree or whatever on paper, you can't go out to wherever you live, North Minneapolis or one of those places, and sit down and talk to a bunch of young angry black men, or young angry teens. I mean, because first of all, he doesn't know how to diffuse the situation. As soon as he walks in, negativity walks in the room with him, whether it's that way or not. You can more relate to the people in your neighborhood if you look like the people in your neighborhood. And that and that once again goes back to that defunding or the police or whatever. When we were young, we kind of gravitated toward that police that looked like us. Nowadays they all wear blue, so we all would assume that there's uh, it's a fraternity suit, you know, and we've lost that trust. So and can the black neighborhood, whether you want to defund, reform, what can the black neighborhood trust the police? I mean, really?
They should be
It's
able
a hard
to. I
call.
mean, but like we're saying, they don't have the neighborhood oriented police, schools. If we don't know your neighbors, if it's a whole different, everybody's fending for themselves. uh, I don't know that there's a real place for like the black homeowner.
And if you're a black homeowner, you know, and a white policeman comes out your to your complaint, do you trust the way that he's going to handle it, or is he just looking at you as like, uh, where's the deed to your house? Is this really your house? You just rent out. You know what I mean? Do you have to go through that layer of disrespect? Or if a black policeman comes out, then oh, brother, it'll be all right, and going, what I mean? So, like you say, to me, it comes back to that trust factor. If you can't trust the police, then how do you get along with the police? Because trust is a big factor. I mean, I can't call because, to give you an example, recently there was a break-in not too far from me, and before the police call, the police here don't even answer the breaking and entering calls. You know, but if I lived 5 blocks away, they'd be there in 2 minutes.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier about this is why the Floyd trial is such a
And I don't,
litmus test
and I don't
for
live in a black
justice.
neighborhood. I live.
For this concept of what is justice. I mean, do we feel that we're going to get justice when we go to court? Okay, court is supposed to be the place where you see the balance of justice, the balance of things, and you figure you're going to go there, and when you come out, a just decision. But see, that's where you're saying the trust. Can you really, if you don't have faith and trust the system, see, You know, that's where that's where the breakdown is. That's where, I mean, like they were saying, and another thing in the Floyd trial, when they were saying that his girlfriend got up and said how he uses drugs together and he's addicted, and so he's a sympathetic. Well, they're not sympathetic. They don't see black people that use drugs. Why are so many people in prison behind minuscule amounts of drugs if it's a sympathetic thing? If it's something that is an illness that you should have treatment, that you no, there are brothers and sisters sitting in jail for long sentences for this stuff. So this parallel universe we live in is it's really going to be hard to get through this labyrinth. And the whole thing keeps coming back to me, this idea of justice. You know, that if you go to court or you go, are you going to be treated? You may not get what you want, but is it going to be fair? You know, it's really it's a tough deal.
I'm sorry, my internet. I'm on a new computer and I haven't got used to the keys yet. But Anthony, you're absolutely right. It's really hard to tell what justice is going to look like, you know, based on the previous models. Have we really had justice as black people, as professionals, and are we always going to have to fight? That's why black people die off so early. Sometimes we have to really fight through our careers to get what we need, to get where we need to go. And it's a struggle that a lot of white folks do not have to even bother with. They don't have to second guess. We were wearing masks before the mayor, the governors told us to wear masks in the public. You know, you have to talk to that lady at the SA at the gas station that might let the dude before you pay with a credit card, and then you pull out your credit card, and if you ain't looking right, can I see some ID? You know, I like wearing my fatigue bottoms, Ragley, and my green T-shirt or my white T-shirt from Tank Hills, you know, down in the Carolina there, you know, where you can't get that red clay out. So I'm not in a suit and tie every day. And you walk through there and they'll ask, even the black folks, well, you got some ID? You're using a credit card? I look at them sideways. I never put, they just gonna have to call the police on me. But the thing is, and I've paid for my stuff, so I know it's out of my account, so I haven't broken any rules. But the thing is, it's like we have to struggle and fight every day.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's driving down the street or just doing what you do on a daily basis. You know, the people that you talk to, there's so many different conversations that you have to have or be ready for as a person of color, black, red, yellow, whatever, with the mainstream, because they have these expectations. And these expectations, they don't have them among each other. White people expect white people to go, hey, how you doing, buddy? Or whatever, you know, and they move on. And we have to figure out how to communicate with them because they're nervous about communicating. You know, I had a lady today, a very prominent white female who I like a lot. I think she's really cool. But she opened up her mouth and parted her lips that she had black friends. You know, I understand. I have black friends. I said, oh, okay. I said, that's racist as hell, number one. I said, I don't care about you having black friends. You could never walk in my fungus-toed shoes and understand or see life. You will never be able to do that. All you get is snapshots from what you see in the media. I mean, I'm not asking you to go in the middle of North Minneapolis and save a family. You know, we don't need a Karen save a family in North Minneapolis. We just need other things. So it's an uphill battle, James. You know that. Anthony knows that. But how do you, I'm interested right now at this point in my life is I don't want to go another year and just be in the middle of BS because we're so many distractions
Well,
for our kids.
I want to know how far up this hill I am because it seems like I've been going up this hill all my life. So, I mean, am I getting to the top? You know, are we near the top? I mean, what's our objective here? We went from the Civil Rights Act of 1968 to HR 1. What's our objective? It seems like we're still fighting for the same objective. Our objective haven't changed. I mean, are we going across flat land here? I mean, what's up?
You know, the Earth is flat. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just
there-
wanted to tell you that. Let's get that
there-
very
there-
clear. The Earth
there's
is
there's
flat.
there's a guy that plays for the New York Nets. His name is Kyrie Irving, and you can have that conversation with him anytime you desire,
No,
because
I'm just.
I call him World Be Flat on my sports show. So yes, the world is flat. So
I mean, I'm kidding, but it's just like, how do you get to the point where this thing is solved within our lifetime? That education is solved, the problems in it is solved within our lifetime. The stuff that we need, we can't leave it as raggedy as it is right now. And part of that is what you said earlier, James, about the respect. These young people, if they don't understand how this works, and they don't, we all know that they don't, then we have this continuous cycle of flossing. In Minnesota, you don't have to make a lot of money to go lease you a Mercedes and have a one bedroom efficiency and act like you rolling. So,
yeah,
but it's a scary thought, and also one thing we got to talk about too is the Black response. Not all of this is white folks. It's really not. If you look down to it, they have outsourced a lot of this to people that look like us. Like, i.e., example, Director of Diversity and Inclusion. What the hell is that?
Yeah, just acronyms. I mean, and things are changing so fast now. The thing, we can sit in here and have a conversation today about something, and then tomorrow something will go down where what we talked about yesterday, we got to change our focus already. We got to change. So things are just moving very, very fast right now. It's not like you have time to even stop and think and process all of the different things that are happening. You have so many um, people from other countries coming here. All of a sudden now there's a big gap down through Mexico, Guatemala, Venezuela, all people coming here. So then all of a sudden now we have to shift our focus to that. Then we have to shift our focus to the trial. Then we have to shift our focus to stimulus. We're supposed to be getting this stimulus, and what's that going to do? Then we have COVID. Do you want to take a shot? I don't know, James. Have you took a shot?
I took both of mine. I took both. I took both of mine.
Mine.
Yeah. I mean,
I check. But then there's people that don't want to take them. There are people that do
no,
not want to take them. People that will not take the shots.
I have
The
a brother that
version, or what do they call it?
the anti-vaxxers
Yeah.
and things. I have a brother like that. Unfortunately, I can't take out an extra insurance
So,
policy on him, but you know, uh, other than that, that's.
but I say all that to
I
say we have to prioritize. We have to prioritize what it is that we really want to do. And I think, not just because Don's here, but I think education is at the forefront. I mean, I really do. I mean, I think the young kids, as they learn, as they grow, learn what to do and what not to do. And I think that's the key for the next generation. We have to nurture leaders that can be in politics, that can do business, that can do and I think we have to be very planful about this stuff. I mean, we really have to sit down and work this thing out, because it's not going to happen around us. It's just not going to. Well, we see that it's not going to happen until we really take the bull by the horns and start to make things better for our communities.
Gentlemen, before I let you go, I'm going to bring in. Usually, I dedicate the last half hour of my show to the San Diego Black Panther Party, but to show you, how it seems like some situations are taking much more serious than others. We had a young man here in San Diego that was killed just before Thanksgiving. And as far as I know, there's been very, very little publicity outside of San Diego about this young man's death. Brother Williams, are you there?
Brother War Williams isn't gonna make it tonight. I'm Karan, Brother Karan, Chief of Staff
Oh,
San Diego
brother.
Black Panther.
Yeah,
So
Brother Karan, we've talked to you before. We've had you on the show. Brother
yeah, that's right.
Karan is he's a very a young man, and when I say that, I mean anybody under the age of 30 is young to me. So, but he's one of those young leaders that I'm talking about that we need to find. But Brother Karan, could you kind of let the two gentlemen from Minneapolis know what happened the Thanksgiving Day circumstances where the young man lost his life? Hello? Hello? Brother Karan? I think we still have him here.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Okay, can you kind of go over those the circumstances under which the young man lost his life the day before Thanksgiving?
Are you referring to the brother that got struck by the car?
Yes.
Yes. So what we're talking about is a brother, that has been active community. His family have been active community, and essentially, local politics have kind of taken hold of that situation to where, you know, the truth hasn't really been pushed, the way it should. And so what we have now is their family fighting for transparency, and basically launching their own investigation into the situation. But it goes deeper than that. It goes into the education system, like y'all were talking about, to where their family was targeted at Lincoln High, with abuse and misuse, and I was out there, standing with them in the media. But what we have is these young brothers basically being slain in the street, and no, a revolutionary is never satisfied. So what they're coming out with, it was all natural circumstances and all happenstance, and the young brother just happened to be wrong place, wrong time, and got hit by the car and all this.
And Brother Scott, to take it, a step further, it was kind of like the George Floyd trial when I believe we had the toxicology report, and the first thing was that there was weed and alcohol found in his system. So once again, it's that George Floyd card where you're making the victim. It's the victim's fault.
Right.
But
So what they're making
so
it look like is he was, I don't know, walking the wrong side of the street. I don't know how you walk the wrong way. He was coming from getting a burrito at a taco shop, and the brother was slain. So, going into that, it's more so of where is the transparency within our communities really? What's really going on, and how do we highlight the contradictions between the news, the media we're getting, and what we're hearing, which was the purpose of the Black Panther Paper News Party,
Yeah,
is to
that's
highlight.
that's a heck of a point
Right.
because I hadn't heard anything about the San Diego situation, and then what it makes me think is how many of these violent things are going on against our people all around the country, around the world, that we don't even hear about. It just so happened for George Floyd, there was a lady there that was able to videotape that and live stream it. But if that
right.
hadn't happened, if she hadn't been there, then what? So it just points out how prevalent these kind of things really are. They're happening not just in Minneapolis. It just so happened that that person was there with the camera, but the San Diego, I didn't hear about that. And I'm sure there's hundreds of others that we just
Oh,
haven't heard about.
Yeah, that's that's why I want to make sure I talk to you guys that are there right on the front lines and know exactly what's going on. Gentlemen, hopefully we'll be here next Monday to talk about it a little bit more. Don, you want to give us your final thoughts for the evening and tell everybody where they can find some of your programming and the other things that might be interesting and at least make us think about what it means to be black and black educators.
Well, I like to just close by saying that this these things that happen to black people and the media propaganda style wheel turns and shows says that, oh, he did drugs or he smoked a joint an hour early. So what? The dude like having fun. The thing is that the penalty shouldn't be his life if he's unarmed or if he has or has not done a crime. But that's been the ongoing narrative for at least 60 years of my life. The ongoing narrative is that if a black person is caught up in something, that means that they're this and they're that. And the media has not let that go. We had Oprah, one of the richest women in the world, have a whole news network and never really addressed. She sensationalized Trayvon Martin. She sensationalized George Floyd. She sensationalized all the black men that were getting killed in these areas by bringing on black district attorneys and folks but it's a rating and advertising game. She wants to, her bottom line is making money. The media's bottom line is who can get there first and say the least, but have the most impact to shock the community. They'll get the biggest advertising dollar. So we're news if we breed, bleed, or what's the other one? Or just breathe, you know? And
Yeah,
so you're
brother.
sitting there, you're just wondering, like, okay, what the hell? What are we going to
And going
do to
off of
make
that,
this better?
that right there is the nature of the beast. It's a capitalistic machine that we've been fed into as tokens in a video arcade game. I'm gonna
Yep.
tell you right now,
Yep.
we are
You're
we are
right. Sure, you're
literally
right.
quarters in the machine. So all that being said, when you look up to the Oprahs or wherever on the media out here, breaking the best story or buck breaking or whatever you want to call it, um, I'm here to tell you that all this is a game they play, and it's not even personal. It's just a vile machine of capitalism that we're dealing with. And so it's our job as educators, as people in the community, to raise the consciousness of the people to where we can get past that, to where we can awaken our people and open their eyes to see what's going on right in front of you every day. And you're not going to get it from CNN. The revolution will not be televised. You're not going to get this from, a blog post or, whatever it may have you. This is coming live from the streets.
Well,
Agreed.
that's what we're going to have to do. Grassroots. Thank you, Don, and I look forward to talking to you again next Monday, at least as long as this trial lasts and you have time. So,
Okay, cool. I appreciate it. I did have a little time. Thank you.
All right. You have a good night,
All right, bye.
Mr. Scott. You've hung
Yeah.
out here with us for a while, and we have a young man here that is going to have a lot of input here in San Diego. The
Great.
the, the young Black Panthers here are definitely making their mark, and you know, actually, I don't know whether you have a chapter in Minneapolis, St. Paul, but it seems that a lot of the same type of organizations, young people thirsting for knowledge, looking towards some of our old foundations, Black Panther Party and such. So, as I said, maybe sometime within our lifetime, we can talk about some of these young Black leaders. But in the meantime, why don't you give us your final thoughts, about what's happening with the trial, or what how people can find you on social
Well,
media or whatever.
well, I encourage, the young black leaders. And I mean, I think I think it's so great to see the young kids come up because see, I've been there. When I was in college, we ran the president and everybody else out of the college. They had to call the National Guard up in Mankato. And now the city of Mankato is a place where it's a very famous place where they hung 38 Native Americans. Okay. And so Abraham Lincoln said they were supposed to hang over 200, but then they said, well, he's benevolent. We're only going to hang 38. But that's where I went to college in Mankato, and every time you went there, they had a statue to commemorate that. And finally, now they've taken it down, and I was able to get bachelor's and master's from that school. And so all of these things in our past have to fuel our future, have to fuel us to do the things for the youth and the young. And as this Floyd thing, I live less than a mile from where this happened. I live less than a mile from there. So anytime you want me to participate in your show and chime in what I see in the neighborhood and what we see with the Floyd, I'd like to spread that to your area and appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we're on every Monday, and every Monday, whenever you have a chance, I'll send you a link. And if you want to come on, if I see Mr. Anthony Scott there, you'll be on the show. I have no problem.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right,
All
brother.
right. I'll see you next Monday.
All right. Sounds
All
good.
right. You have a good night.
Yeah.
Uh, so, good evening, Brother Karan.
All power to the people, brother.
I
Yes, sir.
have been working with some of the people in Minneapolis, especially during this George Floyd trial. So they were the people that you were talking to. One is an educator, Mr. Don Allen, and the other is a community activist. So right now, I'm going to turn the show over to you and what's on our agenda tonight.
I appreciate that. What's on our agenda tonight is following up with the recruit orientation from last week. We had that on Friday, and we are going to have a virtual one coming up this Wednesday at 7 p.m. So if you couldn't make it last week, again, we're looking for people for the information mechanism of the San Diego Black Panther Party, as well as the community mechanism of the San Diego Black Panther Party. And to break down again what the mechanisms mean is a holistic approach. And so what we mean by that, by mechanisms, is that we have a full functioning head, organ, body to make this thing happen. So
You
information is
might
basically
you might want to explain what a holistic approach is too.
right. So a holistic approach means that going to cell theory, or not even going to cell theory, but basically Barney style. You as a full body, you have head, brain, limbs, organs to fully function as a being living in this earth. And so we have our mechanisms, which are our organs that we need to run simultaneously at the same time to breathe life into the party. And so going into that, going off of what the brother said earlier, that was in this podcast, because me myself as a young brother, I'm a child of this struggle. I was born into this struggle. This isn't something I signed up for. This is something I came across by happenstance. My father was thrown behind enemy lines when I was 1 year old. All my furniture, all my everything we had in our apartment was seized by the feds when I was 1 year old as a baby. At 1 year old, I was thrown into the system, I was homeless until I was 5 years old, till we finally scrounged up enough change to get our first apartment. In the case, my father was a drug charge. So all this is interconnected. As far as education and young folks, we are currently the most educated generation right now. So I hear the concerns about the education, but just know that we have more brothers and sisters living that reality right now in these books behind these desks than we've ever had in history, and that's just the numbers of it. Um, and also going back into that, when you have the liaisons and you have the culture people at these schools or whatever, all skin folk and kinfolk, and I feel like that's not necessarily the contradiction that we're trying to point out, because I feel like at this point, us as a younger generation is to be understood. This is what we know already. This is what we're dealing with. This is what you deal with. And all that professionalism, or the illusion of professionalism, is another byproduct of white supremacy. All that language correction, whatever you put down as the image of white and right, is completely contradiction to the culture.
Well, can I ask you a question about those numbers? Because we all know that numbers lie,
Right.
and even though we have the numbers, I have young people in my family that graduated that can't read.
Mm-hmm. And that's part of the
So,
checks in the boxes. When we speak political education, we're talking about education, we're talking about self-determination. Okay. I'm talking about, the class of brothers and sisters that I tutor at, that's an all African school. I'm talking about the after school program I go to teach political education. That's self-determination aspect of it. So yes, when you're reaching out to these institutions that have been backed in time and time again, which goes back into the foul aspect of capitalism. And you've seen the Netflix special or the headlines where you could just buy your way into the team, or you could, all these folks is ushering their kids in with a hefty check, and that's what we're up against. And that's not necessarily a new monster, but well, let me rephrase that. There is a new monster, because before then they'll just tell your black ass, hey, you just can't come here. Go ahead, and that's goes into the importance of the historically black university. So yes, I urge a word to the older generation, and to tell y'all that we see the need. Brother Huey saw the need at Merritt College. They saw the need, and that's why they created the first black curriculum, in the college. But to take that a step further on the ground level, yes, it's gonna take these brothers and sisters, that's out here getting these degrees. Yes, absolutely. But it's gonna take the brothers and sisters that's out here on the streets to teach the young brothers and sisters that's out here on these streets, and that's out here doing math after school and trying to get the geometry and trigonometry and algebra right. To even build with them, on that, and be the one that's teaching these young brothers and sisters how to read, and being the one that's teaching these young brothers and sisters the truth about the game. Because what we're told is come in your suit and tie, in your shoes, and make sure you don't speak this way, make sure you don't etiquette, right? It's a false sense. It's a false sense of reality. So we're fighting against 360 years, 68 years of oppression, in us being the main capital of the United States. So you're fighting a capitalistic structure. You're fighting the dollar. The dollar is the what they essentially replaced you with, brother. So you got to understand that dollar ain't gonna save you. Them checks ain't gonna save you. It's going to stall you out. It's going to get you to a certain point to where you feel like you're making certain decisions. They're going to hand you the dog leash. But guess what? In this game, you're still a dog, brother.
So where do you make the transition? Because I mean, even a dog has someone that takes care of him, or at least
Absolutely. And that's the
provides
thing.
him with you know. So
Yes, and that's the thing about self-determined people and self-determination. The principle of self-determination, and that's what the Panther Party of Self-Defense did recognize in the '60s is the fact that we have these resources in our community. We have these things, and if we're not going to use them, then they're going to be exploited and they're going to be used against us. So it's really just tapping into the resources that are already there, and keeping them in the bounds of self-determination and doing for self. The capital is already there. The framework is already there. That part where we keep our black dollar in the community for average of 6 hours compared to the next man, which is way longer than that, that's just a part of it. All these things are a part of it. When we're talking about the education system, we're talking about the police, we're talking about all these other things. They're symptoms of the game. It's not personal. None of it's personal. It's just a game. It's just what this was built on. And that's to be understood. And so when we're dealing with exploitation, we're dealing with the exploitation of our resources as we have been from Africa from the jump, from day one. We're dealing with exploitation of our knowledge. These brothers didn't invent algebra, Pythagorean theorem. How do you think the pyramids got made? So we're dealing with exploitation on a deeper level than whatever you do see in the media these days. Because what we're doing right now is just the leftovers. And so how can we inch closer? How can we do that? And this isn't even a shame on the reformists or the reform of the people in America who are going after these offices and try to do more for the people in their counties. What this is to be understood is that from a revolutionary stance, uh, that is part of it. That is not necessarily my fight, in this game, but it is a fight to be had for someone that's out there, chipping away at the block that is capitalism until we can come to full revolution. I consider myself a Black nationalist, separatist, pan-African. So, I feel like we need to find a Black nation, and not necessarily in a sense of let's go move to Georgia and break off from the U.S. and declare that our Black nation. No, it's the same thing Malcolm X understood. It's the same thing that all these brothers understood, is that when you wake up in the morning, you go out, you walk down your street, you're not going to be treated the same as everyone else, in this decadent American society. It's those realities that you face. And so what are you willing to do about that other than, all these other means, which I don't denounce, I don't denounce the sentence because it was a means to get, to a point. But where I'm coming from is how many dead ends do you need to hit before you acknowledge the fact that we need to bring death to the individualism that has plagued our community, the us versus us, and really come together on I like to deal in trifactors. So, individual, family, community, right? When we're so good at the individual feeding the family, right? And that's what we do in a vicious cycle. Oh, I'm gonna raise my kids. They're gonna go to good school. They're gonna make more than they ever made. They're gonna move into this certain neighborhood or get this certain amount of land, right? And then they're gonna do the same for their kids. Never
that
mind.
was that was the expectation of my generation. So hasn't that expectation changed for your generation when you're
Because
40, when you're, well, probably about 40 years between us at least.
right, the expectation for our generation is yes, the you have to have a whole individual to support the family, but you also have to have a whole family to support the community, and which makes up the trifactor, right? So,
But haven't we destroyed the family?
not necessarily. I feel like we haven't done anything but try to survive in this country, brother.
Right,
We
I
have,
understand.
yeah, we
I
have,
understand that. So this country has destroyed our family structure.
absolutely.
It's kind of what I'm saying.
When you had
So
the birth of the independent woman, you had the birth of all these things. I don't need no brother. At the same time, you stripped the masculinity from the men by throwing him in the prison for 8 million years. He don't got rights when he come out. He can't even own a gun. He can't even defend his family. Never mind get a job to provide for his family. So what you're dealing with is levels of trauma in the game, to where they've commodified and pitted us against ourselves, without even thinking twice. All right, I ain't dealing with this, brother. XYZ. You see what I'm saying? So that's what we're dealing with now, so more than ever on an intellectual level. It's a mental warfare. It's a game, because you could turn in your TV and devalue yourself immediately off of what you don't belong, what you don't have, and none of that has to do with the community.
so how do we develop? And this is a word that I mean, a lot of people probably don't really understand, but intellectual property. It's one thing that they cannot take from you. So uh, intellectual property also can lead to monetary gains.
Absolutely.
So how do we take back control of our intellectual property, regardless of whether it's on social media or nationwide TV, or uh, to be well, to break it down to grassroots, uh, you know, what's your young brother watches, or who your young brother emulates? Is it gonna be Master P? Is it gonna be Lil Nas? Or is it gonna be his great grandfather?
That's right. And that's a great point. And that goes into the point of again, I like to challenge people. But again, going into the challenging the youth, and I feel like, as of right now, it's a perfect time to have that conversation, because we do have youth, across the spectrum that are standing up more so than I've seen in probably my whole lifetime. And it hasn't been that long, but it's there. And so what we need to do, for the culture, everyone has a responsibility to the culture. You have to find your 2021 Malcolm X. You have to find your 2021 uh Martin Luther King, or not even. You just have to find your 2021 revolutionary that's willing to stand up and define the Black nation as it needs to be defined, and walk with these people and talk with these people. And that's the thing, is where we have a problem of is selling ourselves so short, right? We take the goodie bag. We take the bag of tricks. We're like, okay, this brother's speaking some semi-okay stuff. I could rock with it. I'm gonna jam all his music. I'm gonna support all of that. But what we need is the brother that's gonna stand up and tell you exactly how it is, how it needs to be in the mainstream and whatever. What we need to get back to is a revolutionary culture. If you go back to the house right now and watch the movie Boomerang, where brothers was rocking Pan-African sweaters and kufis, you know what I'm saying? We have to take it back to a culture that feels right, that feels legit, without the corniness or the subtlety even of it. But more so, and I feel like, it's right for that kind of situation. I feel like right now it's right for these young folks to be in your face. Maybe they don't even know halfway what they're talking about, but they going in the right direction.
Well, before we let them go off, and I think we need to educate them, because otherwise it really becomes counterproductive
Absolutely.
if you have somebody out there. I mean, it's kind of like a Kanye West thing.
Well,
It's
yeah,
like,
nah, not going into that. We're going back. That's back into black capitalism, which is going to save you. It's going to push you further into neo-colonialism, brother. What that is you need people that's grounded in the struggle. And to say grounded in the struggle, I'm not saying you need to go do some studious whatever. Like just like how I came onto this podcast and told you the struggle that I came from personally, it's there. I was born for this concrete. You know what I'm saying? That's to be understood. We are children of these streets. So, given that information, yes, it takes a lot of education. Education, first and foremost, in the West Coast chapters of the San Diego Black Panther Party or the Black Panther Party, dealing with the whole West Coast because we don't have the luxury of just walking around with guns and taking news flashes and, oh, yeah, we're out here strapped up, but we're not actually out here making really any real changes besides you looking at me on this camera with this gun. No, we need to simulate the minds of the youth. We need to put the tools in these brain. There is no more free breakfast on. You know who's feeding your kids free lunch? School, the middle school, y'all, the public school system. That's who's getting your kids free lunch, and they don't come with no kind of political education. I'll tell you right now. So we need to take that back. We need to take everything back that the blueprint's been laid out for us, and that's one of my reasons for joining San Diego Black Panther Party. I knew brothers revolutionaries out there had the answers, so it'd be naive of me to go forward and try to organize outside of that and not take those answers and try to build off of them.
yeah, when this party first started in 1968, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
I was in another country, but I was also living on the East Coast, and my education came mostly through Detroit, Michigan. I was doing time in Milan, Michigan, and we had a lot of Detroit Black Panthers that were incarcerated with us. So
That's right. Free all the political prisoners.
yeah, so I got most of my Black Panther education while dealing with the system. And I make no bones about it. I'm a 74-year-old black man. I did my time in prison. I did my time in the army, and I'm on the other side. I think I have some knowledge to present to young people, and I have a platform for young people like you to present your ideas. So, very glad that you made it tonight, and I was glad that you actually got to talk to some of the people in Minneapolis. They'll be on as long as we're having the George Floyd trial. So why don't you give us your final thoughts? Make sure that everybody gets the information for your next rally, and we appreciate your time.
Absolutely, brother. I appreciate that. This week we got recruit orientation via Zoom, Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Hit us at San Diego Black Panther Party on Instagram, Panther Party SD on Instagram, Black Panther Party San Diego at gmail.com, or, call us. Our information is on the website. We're going to be at the Stop Asian Hate March this Saturday in solidarity. Going into that, I've been getting a lot of flack from brothers, uh, it ain't the same and this ain't that. And yeah, I understand, and I know the workings of this, foul media machine. It wants to perpetuate, that we doing something that's been going on for us until way before there was news. So that's to be understood. But what's also to be understood is that, solidarity never did anything but got shit done. And uh and I urge the folks to get a bit of outside of the um self-righteousness, but also, keeping within the means of self-determination. We ain't out here owing nobody nothing. That's to be understood. You ain't nothing your fault, sister, brother. That's to be understood. You don't have to sit anywhere and explain anything on behalf of your people or behalf of whatever they would try to shape it. That's to be understood. But what's to be understood also is that it's going to take more than just a determined class struggle to achieve the means of revolution in the United States.
All right, brother. Well, thank you so much for coming on. All power to the people, and we look forward to talking with you guys next week. I have a couple things that I'd like to talk with the Panthers as well as your affiliate, Huey Newton Gun Club. I saw you had something posted on your website about that also this week. Yeah, we appreciate your time, brother, and look forward to talking to you. And you give Brother Williams our best.
All power to the people, brother. I appreciate you having us on, and thank you for giving us a space.
All power to the people, brother. And if I can be of any help to you, all you have to do is let me know. And if you would send me that link for that Zoom meeting,
Absolutely.
I'd be glad to attend. So,
All right. Right on.
All right. Thank you, brother. You have a great night. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the show. We appreciate your time, and we look forward to talking to you again next week, right here on to another Imperfect Union. Have a great night. Remember to vote, and make sure you keep track of what's going on here in the George Floyd trial. Have a great night. I'll see you next Monday.